Hello there and welcome to Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue. We are all about using technology to solve everyday problems. And, of course, your host is none other than Mr. Iyer himself, an expert in all things SaaS and the digital world.
Welcome to our next episode on the series The Fractionals, and today we will be talking to a Fractional Chief Operations Officer.
Welcome back everyone to Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue, where we explore the cutting-edge intersections of tech, travel, and transformation in the business and professional spheres. Today marks a special occasion as we continue with our new season and dive into second episode of the Fractional series. In this series, we are uncovering the dynamic world of fractional CXOs, learning directly from the experts who are reshaping industry with their specialized knowledge and leadership. So I'm your host, Mahesh Iyer, and I'm thrilled to have Jane with us today. Jane is a distinguished London-based fractional COO, boasting over 6+ years of experience in the fast-paced startup scene with a robust background in business studies from Bremen and Vienna, coupled with her involvement in over 70 interviews and numerous successful projects. So Jane brings a wealth of expertise in data-driven decision-making. Leadership has propelled organizations with over 20 million in ARR collectively towards becoming a data-centric entities. Oof, that's mouthful, Jane. So it's an honor to have you on the show. Your journey and insights as a part of the Fractional series. So welcome, and I leave the floor to you to introduce yourself for the listeners.
My pleasure. I couldn't expect even better introduction. So my pleasure being here. I've been waiting so much for today's interview. And so I'm Jane, and the most interesting fact about me is that I am trying to turn chaos into an order. And usually my friends say that I'm kind of a nerd in this direction, but that's good for founders if they have any operational difficulties. And usually my strength is that I work mostly with those who want to scale, who want to raise funds, and they need to structure everything inside. So right now, mostly focus on B2B, have some cases in B2C also, and really happy to be sharing all the insights because I know how hard the role of fractional is.
Yeah.
So I'm here to share my insights and be useful for someone.
So, the first question is obviously fractional COO. Now, there's a lot of curiosity around the role of fractional COO. Could you explain what a fractional COO does and why a business might choose to hire one instead of a full-time COO?
That's an amazing question because I already in this sphere, in the sphere of fractionals for a year and a half, and I've been thinking, wow, it's so obvious. How people don't know what does it mean? But then I recalled that a year ago I didn't know also. So the fractional is kind of an interesting booster, I would say, for a company. Usually fractionals are not full-time or even part-time employees. They come to a client, they try to do an audit, understand what's going on inside the business, and then they are kind of consultants. So they advise on the system which should be set and all the innovations. So for instance, a company can have already operations manager, but they need some strategic things, or they want to do the whole big system from scratch, but the operations manager don't have this experience. So they usually hire fractionals because they can help them setting up all the system. They even teach sometimes those operations manager, and then they leave a company. So I would say that magic person for usually half a year or 8 months who helps companies bootstrapped even, and there are a lot of different fractionals, products, marketing managers, etc.
Correct. Those are incredible insights, Jane. Moving on, assessing company needs to energize its leadership and operational team is crucial. And I know my last conversation with you, you were talking about, energy, emphasizing those importance. So how do you approach this, energizing your teams? Because you are a fractional COO.
Yeah. And that's the hardest thing in being fractional, I would say, because when you are fractional, sometimes you don't have a hard connection, and you don't have a daily connection with your team. So mostly you connect with C-level people, but when you do some new processes, you will need to communicate it to other team members, teach them, for instance, if you set up a new tool, let's say. So how I usually do this. When I start, I have all those interviews with people inside the company, and especially with those with whom I will be working. And then, usually, when I do some changes, I would rather do this either with Loom, where they can see me, they can feel my vibe, or
Mm,
I'm doing this through some of the online meetings. Because what I understood recently is that the idea is not just to implement something new, do this instruction, as
right.
most founders think of CEOs, but to share those innovations with my energy and with
Hmm.
my passion to them so other people can feel that. So the main idea is to share the vibe, to do this either through video, to share this knowledge through trainings online, but to show people that I know that it's useful and I believe that they can benefit of that. So that's mostly how I do that.
Perfect. Perfect. Um, this is so exciting, because COO involves in a lot of process optimization. And I remember, again, going back to our earlier conversation, which we did before, where you spoke a lot about automation and process of automation, automation. And you had significant success in process optimization, I remember. Can you share some story, where your intervention significantly improved a client's business operation?
Usually at this point, most of the internal employees can hate me. When I come and I tell them, okay, from now on, you don't move the same way, but you follow this flow and it
Correct.
will be automated. They tell me like, but it's not optimized in our processes. It's only 100%. But then when I show them mathematics, they understand how. So
Correct.
my favorite case and the hardest one so far, surprisingly, why it's my favorite. So it was a case when we automated the flow of pre-sales and sales for an IT company. So they had more than 45 touches between project manager and sales manager, and they
Hmm.
used Google Sheets, Pipedrive, Slack, and ClickUp. And we
Hmm.
decided to totally renew this process, and we automated all the messages sending from ClickUp to Slack, from Slack to Pipedrive. So every person has, like every direction has their own tool with which they work, and this decreases time for their cooperation. So yeah, what we did, we decreased time of pre-sales and sales almost twice. And so far, I can say that the most powerful automation which we did, decreasing also steps from 45 up to 20, I suppose.
Okay, brilliant. So I want to go touching upon the same thing. So in terms of a lot of people get confused with automation and getting things your process right. So in terms of automation, what common areas do you identify for time savings and how do you approach this?
So besides automations, usually when founders want to scale, they start thinking, okay, what they have in their head and what should be written, not to be asked daily about the same questions. So
Correct.
I would say, and that's really cool question, because most of the founders basically come with this idea: we want to save time, but we don't want to automate. What should we do? So, and yeah, that's the point when I come and say, okay, let's read all your thoughts, what you do daily, and let's put it on paper to understand
Mm-hmm.
the main standards and main instructions. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
point where they get the biggest number of insights, because they were thinking that they have a team and it operates. However, when we start reading what their thoughts and what they usually do, we understand that, okay, most of the processes are still in their head. And in
Correct.
order to optimize the process and the work of a company, we would rather read all those processes from the head of a founder, put it on a paper, do some
Mm-hmm.
simple basic standards in a ClickUp, let's say, or in Coda, Notion, whatever, and do out of this onboarding for new people, let's say. And yeah, it doesn't require automation, but it's only a wiki of a company which founders can use to save time for themselves to work with a product or to do sales, what they usually like doing.
Correct. Excellent. That's why I see the energy. And I always talk about you having an energy. Whenever I have this conversation, I feel there's an energy there in you. And whenever I have a conversation, you always talk about having energy in your people. So I want to go one step ahead and say that, uh, you always said that people buy your energy, not just your product. So can you elaborate that more on your principle and experiences from your experiences?
That's my quote of last 5 months is because what I understood as a founder previously, I was thinking that, okay, the product has to be perfect, and only at this point people start buying it. But based on my previous experience working with companies, after speaking with numerous investors, and right now after launching my services, I understood that you don't need to know everything. It's not about learning everything from scratch till top and then positioning you as an expert. No, it's not about that. It's about knowing what you do, of course, still having some gaps, because we are people. That's totally fine if you start working with new business models, if you don't know latest updates of some tools. But usually, when you speak with people, when you communicate with potential customers, they start reading you as a personality rather than you as an expert. At first, they trust you as a person, and only
Correct.
then they want to buy your product or service. Because
Correct.
of this, there is a capital of identity which investors usually look for, that they would rather invest into a person who know less, but after some years, if this person is passionate and a leader, they will be definitely at the point. So yeah, to sum up, I would say that my top motto for last 3 months is that people buy you rather than your services or your product. So invest in yourself and be yourself.
I'm sold. I bought it. So I want to go one step. You have been a fractional COO, and people talk about skills and qualities. So what is the most underrated skills or qualities do you believe make a fractional COO particularly effective in their role?
Mm-hmm. I had to write about this even a post, so you inspired me already. Uh, so I would say that the first thing is uh, your if you are in love with challenges, that would be the first one, because
Hmm.
usually the role of COO is quite uh, how to say it fluctuates. So you don't have the same functions today, tomorrow, and the year after a company grows. So today you can do marketing analytics, let's say, and set up
Hmm.
processes in, and tomorrow you will need to launch your let's say delivery for your product, so it varies. So the first one would be if you lack challenges. The
Hmm.
second and it's not even the first one, is your attention to details. And before, and usually even sometimes in my personal life, I can be not so attentive to details because I use so much energy to be attentive to details during my work. But I would say that that's what differs the average person from the leader and from the top people, because only those who do something good and those who do something excellent, paying attention to the details, only they can reach the tops. So that's the second skill. And the third skill, I would say, your ability to be creative. And it's kind of surrealistic now, it sounds like, but only having a creative mind and looking at some of the processes from a different perspectives, let's say, from a gardening perspective, scientific perspective, mathematical perspective, you can solve some of the issues. And it's not only about directly your knowledge before. So yeah, that would be the final one. And innovation or creativity, so that sounds like one of the most important in my list, I would say.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm sure listeners must be really getting a lot of information here. I remember during your intro, you said about, is there any, how do you adapt to different industries? You are a fractional COO, and you work with different clients in different sectors. So each industry has a unique
Yeah.
work methodology, culture, style, product, solutions. So how do you, when you're managing so many different sectors, how do you do that?
And that's hardest for me so far. So you
Hmm.
just hit the target. Yeah, because yesterday I was communicating with my friend and he asked me, oh, I'm going to launch a real estate company soon. Would you be happy to join me later on as an ops person? And I said like, wow, real estate, that can be interesting. And to be honest, I have just once been working with a huge construction corporation just
Hmm.
on the side, but I basically agreed because it's quite interesting, and the answer can be quite simple. If you have this business logic and you understand that
Hmm.
basically all the processes are the same. We are selling something to someone, we are
Correct.
delivering the result, and then we are finishing or offboarding a client. Depends if it's a service or if it's a product. So if you have in mind those processes and you see them and you can imagine those processes, it's possible to do that. But important thing is that when I say my clients, oh, I have never been working with the ads agency, let's say, they are marketing agency, and they were even more fascinated by this because
Mhm.
they believe, for instance, that if I have never been to the same industry, I can bring even more insights and that
Correct.
I don't have any biases to the same industry. So,
Correct.
of course, I may not know how to grow their marketing, but that's not my role. So I have just to work with processes rather than do growth marketing for them. And that's the reason. If I would be a growth marketer or a product owner, probably I would need to focus more. But right now, let's say direction of IT services and
Hmm.
simultaneously something offline for offline businesses, franchises, let's say, can be
Hmm.
possible. And it's really interesting.
Wow. Wow. So let me go one step ahead and ask you this question. So if you have to be a fractional for a startup, or would you rather do for an established company? What are the
Oh,
what are the challenges and opportunities on both?
wow. all my clients can be offended now.
I don't want to put you in a catch, so you can just tell me what are the basic challenges you face if you have to
Um,
differentiate a startup and an enterprise or an
yeah.
established company if you have to do a fractional.
I would say that let me think because I haven't put it into words yet. So when you work with a startup, you know that you
Mm,
can bring a lot.
mm,
You can bring metrics, you can bring different approaches, innovation, what I mentioned, and they would be really flexible. I would be able to make up whatever I want from them if they have a desire. But if we speak about established company, it's another story because in this case, it's becoming even harder because they already have something which I need to break in order to bring something new. But simultaneously, it's more interesting, can be more interesting because they are already on the certain level of their growth, and all what was working for startups won't work for them. So I have to
correct.
create something new and learn also while doing this. So it depends also on flexibility of the team, I would say, because I know some of the startups and some of them are my clients who already have such a sophisticated processes that they don't need any updates. They just want to automate the existing process. And that's also where challenges come. So I wouldn't say that there is the one whom I will choose, but every type has their advantages and disadvantages, and it
Correct.
really depends on the team, even.
Okay. Okay. So I'll before I won't take much of your time. Probably I'll have a couple of questions more. Um, Tell me, with digital transformation now, it's specifically taking over completely, and with remote setting, how has the role of a COO evolved, particularly for a fractional COO, the new age of this digital transformation and doing everything remote?
That's really interesting question because on my previous podcast, basically I was debating with my host, with my friend, and we were also discussing a lot this IE topic. And since the time, even it's like 5 months only, but a lot
Hmm.
of things have changed. And I would say that offline business is not ready for IE. They are not even ready for pure, simple digitalization. Restaurants, some of them don't have any POS systems. They don't have CRMs. They have
Hmm.
only Excel sheets for franchises. That's what I've seen even here in London, even like in megapolis of digitalization, we can imagine. But if we speak about tech companies, and that's the place where IE has mostly been integrated into, I would say that before operations was a role for the person who was doing everything, closing all the gaps, and who was like a firefighter.
Hmm.
Um, like checking time, checking tasks. But now the challenge is that if you say to your founder that I was checking Clockify or time tracking entrances or the work of someone, the founder would be like shocked because what it is expected now from a COO is to
Correct.
automate
Correct.
processes and decrease your monkey and mundane work to nothing and have more strategic work. And I would say that the biggest expectation from a CEO right now is to decrease the number of manual processes and dumb operations in a company and have all of them either automated. I'm not even saying about IE, either automated, optimized, so the team can focus on the product creation and not doing anything manually.
Excellent. So I think so. Our listeners must be really happy to understand so much about a fractional COO. So my last question to you would be is give some advice for aspiring fractional CEO for example, an individual interested in pursuing a career in fractional studio, what advice would you give them? Are there any specific skills or experience they should focus on developing?
I would say that take all the challenges the company has, don't divide them and don't perceive them as the processes of marketing or product department. The COO is the chief of all the processes, and it doesn't matter that you are only here in this direction, working in this direction. I would say that read all the latest updates related to what company do, because they already done a lot, and try to help solving your company's problems in all the directions. Do not just be a separated part of a company, because sometimes CEOs set up part of their operations, like if they are responsible, let's say, for HR or recruitment, and they are pretty happy with that, thinking that everything is in a company. But then if they go and think and see wider, they would see that in delivery there are millions of problems, and that's what I stumbled on. So please focus on all the directions and try to think and be creative.
Okay, I think so. That's brilliant to sum it up. So I'm sure everybody now knows what a fractional COO does. And thank you, Jane, for doing it. So anybody who wants to reach out to Jane, she's on LinkedIn. When we upload these podcast, people can go and take a look at her link and reach out to her if there are any fractional COO opportunities for her. So thank you very much, Jane, for doing this. And for everybody who wants to listen more about fractionals, please chip in and log into our podcast, Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue, on Spotify, Apple, and all the other channels. So thank you very much.
That's a wrap on this episode of Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue. Before we close out today's episode, a quick reminder to all our listeners. If you found value in today's insights and discussions, be sure to subscribe to Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other leading podcast platforms. By subscribing, you'll stay updated with the latest episodes and continue to delve deep into the ever-evolving world of digital dynamics with Mr. Iyer. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to having you join us for our next episode. Until then, keep the dialogue going and keep pushing the boundaries of digital innovation. Farewell, and stay curious.